Samalid, Hogan here. I'm joined today by Glenn Edwards. Glenn joined his parents' family business back in 1980 after graduating from Stony Brook University. After growing the company to become one of the largest home healthcare firms on the East Coast, he sold it in 2005. He now runs his investment company, Chart Organization LLC, which has holdings in commercial real estate, multifamily residential, retail stores, and recreation companies. Welcome, Glenn.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Glenn, tell us a little bit about Chart Organization and where are your real estate holdings?
So Chart has real estate holdings in 10 states. We have about 1 million square feet in total. We are in partnership with Louis Weiner, a 95-year-old, 65-year real estate veteran on 18 of those properties. And Lou has been a mentor to me, and he's my partner in Springfield, in our Springfield holdings. And at 95, I still lean on him for advice. But I started Chart in 2003, knowing that I was selling my home healthcare business, and I sold it to a management-led buyout with a big bank from New York City financing them. I was always a passive investor in real estate, and we used real estate for some of our offices and headquarters for our home care business. So I knew a little about real estate, but I didn't know a whole lot about being an operator and owning a lot of properties. But between 2004 and 2006, I bought 18 properties in addition to what I already owned with my partner, Lou Weiner, and about 7 of those properties happened to be in Springfield, Massachusetts. We bought them in 4 different acquisitions, 4 different purchases to do an assemblage of the whole block between Harrison and Falcons Way, and the parking and the surface parking lot and the marketplace street behind it. We started buying Class A properties in New York City, apartment buildings, and around the country, some Class A shopping centers and better markets. So we have a mix of office, a little residential, strip centers, retail in our portfolio. Again, it's a small family business run by myself and my son, and we have a few colleagues. Most importantly, Chart partners, or doesn't partner financially, but partners with great property managers and leasing agents around the country. So we have a much bigger team, but inside we have 5 people within the company, and one that you know very well, Sherelle, who comes up to Springfield every week now as an owner's rep.
Right. So 1341 and 1383 Main Street, you've owned those for, over 10 years at least. And how come you decided to invest in Springfield? I know you talked a little bit about that, the person you bought it from, but why Springfield?
I've told this story a bunch of times to people from Springfield and to George O'Brien and Business West, who's interviewed me a few times. And they always say, why Springfield? And up
Why
until
not Springfield, right?
Up until MGM made their substantial investment, it was a why Springfield, because I was one of the only outsiders investing in Springfield. Honestly, for years, there'd been no new investments that came to the central business district or around Springfield for years. There was no new housing development for decades. There was no new commercial buildings built for decades. So the real question was, why Springfield? And what made me fall in love with Springfield the very first time I went there and the way I got there was I used to drive up to Vermont from Long Island with my kids every Friday during the winter. And when I say every Friday, I drove up and I never got off the parkway off 91. I just drove right through it. It takes only, blink of an eye to drive through 91. There's usually some congestion coming around the turnover there by Forest, by the park. And you try to get through it so you know that you're only about 2 hours from Okemo. And I did that every weekend for years. And then I got a listing on a property in Springfield Marketplace, which is 4 buildings combined together in the heart of the city. And I got off the road one time and I said, oh my God, this is such a beautiful city. The buildings are fantastic. What great history is here. But the price per square foot was very low. The reason the price per square foot to purchase was very low is because there had been no new investments in the city. Again, rents were compressed because of oversupply. And this was, again, back in 2006, 2007, when I started buying there. But I said, you know what? Real estate Springfield has such great bones, has such great history. There's going to be a turnaround. And that's why I invested in Springfield, because I saw that at some point there was going to be this great turnaround, like you've seen in other New England cities and cities around the country that had gone through change. And it was just a matter of time for me.
Great. Can you tell us about some of the development that's been happening right there downtown Springfield in your buildings? We know about the shops at Marketplace, and we've seen exciting things come in and go out, but tell us a little bit of what's currently going on.
Well, I'll take a half a step backwards, and only a half a step, is that Springfield has had a bunch of false starts during my holding period, which is now close to 14 years. So we've had periods where the Renaissance looks like it was going to take hold, and then there was a financial crisis, and then there was a Hurricane Sandy, and then there was a tornado, and then there was, so they've had things that have happened that have derailed it, except it never stopped, like that little train that could. It never completely stopped. It always seemed like it was going to get going. And through the leadership of Mayor Sarno and City Council, finally, they did the deal with MGM. And that was $1 billion investment in the city. And $1 billion in Springfield would be like $100 billion in New York City. It's just gigantic. It was overwhelming. It was like throwing a boulder in a puddle versus a pebble in the river. So, $1 billion in New York City would be a pebble in the river. It wouldn't even ripple. But $1 billion in Springfield had tremendous rippling effects. And the ripples go all the way to my properties. So it hasn't really helped office, because there is an oversupply of office in the market. Businesses haven't moved downtown into Springfield. They didn't move down during the construction period because it was really tough to get around of MGM, and they haven't moved yet, but I think they're starting to come. But retail was on the verge of a major turnaround. You mentioned some people that were really responsible for this, and I had Mickey Lassard and Nancy Feth, who know them well, and the whole city should know them well. They had faith in the downtown Marketplace before anybody else did. So with the help of the bid and Chris Russell's team, they made Springfield retail a possibility again. Real retail, not bargain retail, but real retail, to bring real shops back and real restaurants like the Nosh and now 413 and Sweet Ideas. They did parties on Wednesday nights, Wednesday wine parties, and they did Thursday events. Now there was summer breezes of summer. So it came back. And what we planned on doing was, and the mayor asked us to do this a number of years ago, to bring market rate housing downtown so people would live and work downtown again like they used to. We plan to convert 1341 Main top 3 floors to 18 gorgeous loft apartments, brand new. It'll be the best in the market. And 1383 above Johnson's bookstore, 21 apartments in there that'll be loft style, like Soho, New York style apartments, where they're high ceilings, wood, all the original wood left in the places, exposed, pipes and beams to make it real loft looking. And we got permits for 1341 in January after a long, hard task. We used Ray Hervaux's Studio One for our architect. He's really fabulous. And we finally got our permits. And what happens? COVID. Unbelievable. We were ready to start construction. It was just another time where there was this gigantic renaissance coming. MGM hired 2,700 people. The rippling effect of them and all the people they hired, there was a demand for housing. And we're ready to convert office into housing, take some of the office supply out of the market, which would help all the landlords. and COVID hits. And it's like, are you kidding me? How could this possibly be happening again? We're ready to start construction. But then MGM lays off 1,700 employees or more, furloughs everything shuts down. The demand for housing, it wasn't a great time to start building yet, but we still plan to develop those 1341 and 1383 into market rate housing. And our retail across the whole Main Street and the whole back marketplace is all filling up. We have new leases signed, and I think every space except our prime location, 1391 corner, which you know well because you've tried to assist us. That's the last piece of the puzzle, and we've been talking to people about that also, but we've been waiting for a great anchor tenant for that location for years because we think it's such an important part of the city.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I agree. It is a very prominent, it's right in the middle of downtown, and you really can't go downtown Springfield without passing by your properties and seeing some of the development that is going on there. And some of the Nosh, for example, is a staple there now. Everyone loves it for lunch and for catering and takeout. So that's a great asset and amenity for downtown Springfield, as well as you mentioned 413 Cafe and others. And so, you know, you've written 2 books. I want to talk a little bit about them. One of them was Coming Into Your Own: How to Develop the Morals and Mindset of a Future Business Leader. And in that book, you talk about the importance of having a mentor. And can you briefly share with us why do you think it's so important to have a mentor, and any suggestions of where business owners can find one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's when I wrote the book, it was right at the 2008 financial crisis. My son was coming out of college at Northeastern University. All his friends were coming out, and all of a sudden, the world shut down. There was no hiring. Kids were so nervous about the future. They didn't think there was a future, actually. Nobody knew. It was a precipice. Nobody knew when the end of the cliff would end and how deep it would go. So I started writing a blog that was giving advice to these young people and trying to give them hope. And the blog turned into a book later, a number of years later. And when I started writing it, I realized how important it is that when you are working, it's how you work, it's who do you learn from, it's what do you do on a daily basis to make yourself a better person and the people around you better. One of the key points of the book was learn from the most honorable people, don't take shortcuts, and look for that person in the company that you want to aspire to be. And if it's that person that happens to be someone that takes shortcuts, that got really rich really fast, and you think that's the way to go, don't do it. I implore you, don't take shortcuts. Learn from great people. Try to embrace them, put them as part of your life. And even after you leave that job, stay in touch with them, because your network is very important. And you want to build a network of really good people around you, because good people do good things. And that's giving back to the community. That's getting into the office first. That's leaving last. And that's making sure that every day you're a little more productive than the day before. So just back to mentoring. I still do a lot of young business leaders. I mentor some of my contemporaries, because a lot of my contemporaries who are in their late 50s and early 60s, believe it or not, are starting new businesses or making investments in companies. So I sit on the board of 5 different companies and non-paid positions. Some of the companies I've invested in because I really believe in what they're doing, but I sit there and I try to give advice about the right things to do in business, the things that have helped me get through challenging times and also take advantage of opportunities.
Albert Einstein once said, in the midst of every crisis lies a great opportunity. And you have a second book that's called This Is It. And it was co-authored with your son, Jonathan Edwards. Do you think this is still it? And during this crisis, are there still opportunities out there for people to grab?
This is in my heart, okay, I'm telling you this, in my head, and what I believe stronger than in any time in my entire career, which is now 40 years, and what I've learned, there's going to be an explosion of new businesses after COVID, like this country has never seen in its 300-year history. The explosion right now, the this is it moment, we wrote it before COVID because there was so many people that were going to that WeWork type office to open a one-person shop. And we're building out micro offices in our building, and a lot of other landlords around Springfield and Chicopee and Holyoke are doing the same thing. I've read some recent articles, and we all feel the same thing, that there's a million small businesses that can emerge. My son has a term, he calls it the democratization of information. Having this phone, a computer, gives you access to the same information that the most senior executives at Google or Facebook or Goldman Sachs, that they have. We all have access to the same information, and small businesses can emerge from their home into a micro office and become an opportunity for them. Now, the reason I say that there are going to be more this is it moments in the country in the next 2 to 3 years than any time in the history of this country is because of COVID. COVID unfortunately took so many lives. It can almost make you cry when the words come out of your mouth, when you think about it. But it killed so many businesses also. The decisions made by our leaders to shut down industry to save lives, unfortunately, the byproduct was it killed businesses. I lost so many deals. I had a bunch of my tenants go out of business. But those people aren't going out of business. Their business went out of business, but they're going to be right back in business. Every vacancy that had a restaurant is going to have a new restaurant. Every coffee shop that went out of business is going to have a new coffee shop. You're going to see retail popping up where they said brick and mortar was dead. There's going to be more this is it moments for young, not me, young fertile minds, kids that have an idea. Now, some of them won't make it. Some of them will open with the wrong values and think that, it's going to be easy. It's hard. But when you read This Is It, the book, and it'll give you the format to go out and build a smart business the right way and have a chance at success. And that's why Jordan and I wrote the book. We didn't write it for COVID. We didn't have that in mind. We just said that there are so many new businesses emerging because technology is changing things so radically and so fast that opportunities to start something new has never been more available.
Right. Thank you so much, Glenn, for all of this information, and it's very inspirational to hear you talk about the opportunities that are available, because as you said, many businesses have gone out of business, but it's good to know that there will be other businesses coming up and taking their place. And even the folks who've currently gone out of business, there's always lessons to learn from what's happened. Something that can make you a little bit stronger, more resilient next time. And could you share with us, as last words, what are some of the lessons or insights you've gathered from this crisis? Any words of advice for folks out there?
Well, I was blessed. I was so fortunate to sit on Zoom calls just like this from the beginning of the Zoom crisis. You know that my son Jordan and my daughter Gabrielle started a clothing business about 10 years ago called Mixology Clothing. And Mixology Clothing had 10 stores, all retail. Guess what happened in March? Shut down. I mean, it's amazing that we're still in business today. Most of the retailers that I know that were similar to us are gone. But Jordan, for the last 6 years and 7 years, has been investing in technology in our company. We have a robust website that is equal to any great retailer in the whole country, even though we're a small business. But the investments he made to build technology within our company, to build a Salesforce platform that we were able to switch the business over from a retail walk-in business to a Salesforce business overnight. So we retained, out of 180 employees, we retained 30 employees, and we kept on the phones and on Zoom calls and on the internet and went after our customers directly. We knew who they were, we knew where they were, and we stayed in business until we could reopen our stores around Memorial Day. And we made it. The lesson is, if you even have a small business or a big business, invest in technology. The other lesson is, which we know for 65 years now, when my father started the business in 1955, is put your money back in your business. Leave your money in your business. Don't take every penny out, so that when you hit a bump, a hole in the road, or a bump in the road, and things really derail you, like a COVID or a hurricane or something else, that you have the wherewithal to withstand it. So we had left everything in our business. We always did. We owned our inventory. We owned our leases were all paid up, and we didn't have debt. So we were able to stay in business through it. So the lesson is, invest in technology. Take as little out of your business as you possibly can. Leave as much as you possibly can in it. And if you do hit a bump in the road, you'll be able to withstand it. If you don't hit a bump in the road, you'll just have a healthier business. There's no downside to it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And thanks everyone for watching.
And thank you. You're fabulous.